Hello. I thought that it would be fun to do a bit of a story time, and I'm going to share with you one of my favorite ballet stories. And I love how ballet uses no words by the dancers, but they tell an entire story. But sometimes it's nice to be able to listen to the story behind before we see the ballet. So today we're going to read Coppelia, and I'm reading out of a book by Darcy Bassell and Barbara Newman and illustrated by Gil Tomlin. It's an illustrated book of ballet stories. So here is the setting for Coppelia. It's set in Hungary. Great opportunity for you to look that up on a map. So the first chapter, The Lover's Quarrel. In a country village near the top of a distant mountain lived an old inventor named Dr. Coppelius and his daughter Coppelia. Every day Coppelia sat on her balcony reading a book, but she never moved or said a word. Even Swanilda, the friendliest girl in the village, could not make her speak. One morning Swanilda skipped into the square looking for her boyfriend Franz. She was amazed to find him grinning up at Coppelia and throwing her kisses like confetti. Flirts make terrible husbands, Swanilda blurted out, startling Franz with her sharp words. Before he could explain himself, their friends crowded around them, chattering about the new bell. It will ring tomorrow for all new brides, said the burgomaster. Will you be one of them? Unable to hide her tears, Swanilda shook her head sadly and dashed away, leaving Franz to shrug his shoulders in innocent confusion. That evening, when Dr. Coppelius left his mysterious tinkering and scurried outside for a stroll, several boys jumped from the shadows to frighten him just for fun. The old man whacked them with his cane and finally chased them off. Hearing the commotion, Swanilda and her friends rushed into the square, but by then everyone else had disappeared. Something bright in the dust caught Swanilda's eye. It was Dr. Coppelius's house key, which he had dropped in the scuffle. What luck, she cried. Now we can meet Coppelia face to face. Oh no, wailed the girls, hanging back. Go in there by ourselves? Absolutely not. Then I will go alone, Swanilda laughed. Shamed by her courage, Swanilda's friends swallowed their fear and tiptoed after her. Just as they vanished, Franz sneaked into the moonlit square carrying a ladder. He had made his own plans and was going to visit Coppelia too. The next chapter, entitled In the Workshop. Too frightened even to whisper, the girls crept nervously into Dr. Coppelius's workshop. They saw folded arms, glassy eyes, and crumpled bodies, all as still as stones. Pulling back a dusty curtain, Swanilda discovered Coppelia, sitting in her usual chair and reading her usual book. Hello, she said politely, but of course she got no answer. She moved closer. Has the cat got your tongue? She asked. Again, no answer. So she reached out and tugged Coppelia's skirt. Still nothing happened. Inching even closer, Swanilda stared straight into her rival's face and dissolved into giggles. She will never answer us, she announced to her quaking friends, because she's a doll. They are all dolls. Whooping with delight, the girls wound up the toys and danced among them, causing havoc in the workshop. They made so much noise that Dr. Coppelius appeared in their midst without being noticed. Get out, all of you, he bellowed, swinging his cane at their legs as they sprinted away. Swanilda knew she could not escape, so when his back was turned, she ducked behind Coppelia's curtain. Alone at last, Dr. Coppelia was still patting the dolls into place when Franz slipped into the workshop from the balcony and began to explore. The old man could hardly believe it. Why am I cursed with so much trouble, he wondered. But now he was ready for intruders. What do you want? He barked, seizing Franz by the arm. I want to marry your daughter, Franz sputtered. Dr. Coppelius smiled warmly, but his eyes were as cold as ice. A brilliant idea flared in his mind like a candle. Have a drink with me, he murmured, and then we will discuss it like friends. He tugged Franz into a chair and filled his glass again and again, first mixing with wine with a magic potion. When Franz fell asleep, Dr. Coppelius rolled up his sleeves and went to work. Chapter 3. Wishes come true. Pushing Coppelia's chair into the center of the room, Dr. Coppelius gazed at her proudly. She was the most beautiful doll he had ever made, and now he was going to bring her to life. He consulted the diagrams in his magic books and mumbled some ancient spells, and then he drew the energy from Franz's eyes and muscles and bones and thrust it towards Coppelia. First her eyes blinked, then her shoulders wiggled. After that, she stood up and took a few steps. Dr. Coppelius fell back in amazement, watching his doll move and turn by herself, and his hopes rose even higher. Concentrating with all his might, he dragged his hands across Franz's chest, absorbing the beat of his heart and guiding it to Coppelia. A gentle smile curved on her lips, and she started to breathe. Dr. Coppelius trembled with joy, and he laid his ears against her chest. He listened to her heartbeat. Of course, my heart is beating, Swanilda was thinking. I'm a real live person. Any fool could see that. Dr. Coppelius was not a fool, but his love for his creation blinded him to the truth. He did not realize Swanilda had put on the doll's dress and was pretending to be Coppelia. The faster she danced, the happier he became. Swanilda grew tired of her disguise when she noticed Franz snoring at the table. When she tried to awake him, she set all the dolls in motion, hoping her mischief would distract Dr. Coppelius. Be a good girl, please, the old man protested, stumbling after her to undo the damage, but Swanilda ignored him. Yanking Franz to his feet, she shoved him towards the door, and they ran into the night together. Left alone, poor Dr. Coppelius collapsed in despair. Beside him flopped the twisted body of his dear Coppelia, who had never really come to life at all. The last chapter, A Day to Celebrate. Bright and early the next morning, all the villagers assembled on the rolling lawn of the manor house. The lord of the manor had promised the town a new bell and invited everyone to celebrate its arrival from the foundry. Trellises of flowers caught the sunlight in a net of many colors, and crisp banners flapped in the breeze. All the young couples received a blessing and a small dowry from the generous lord. With their arms entwined, Swanilda and Franz led the parade of radiant brides and handsome grooms. Just as the burgomaster was thanking the local lord for the shiny new bell, a gloomy shadow fell across the lawn. Dr. Coppelius had wrapped Coppelia in a blanket and brought her along from the workshop. He was furious. I want an explanation, he grumbled, pointing to a ruined doll. I want an apology. I must be paid for the damage. I demand justice. Swanilda and Franz begged him to forgive him for their prank. Please take my dowry, said Swanilda. It's not much, but maybe it will be enough to repay you for the trouble we caused. We never meant to harm you by any of our tricks. She smiled so sweetly and spoke so sincerely that Dr. Coppelius forgave her at once, and when the burgomaster handed him a bag of gold coins, his anger evaporated. Muttering gruff good wishes to Swanilda and all the pretty brides, he trotted happily back to his workshop and his faithful dolls. Franz hugged Swanilda as hard as he could, and she hugged him back. No more dolls for me, he promised. A real girl is more lively than a mechanical one, and much more fun too. I gladly give you my heart, Swanilda. Good, she said with a wink to her girlfriends. I'm delighted to accept it. So the story has some twists and some ups and some downs and some choices that are made that are good and some that are bad. Some great talking points to enjoy too. So maybe in time you'll have an opportunity to see the ballet Coppelia, and if you do, you'll know the story.